Hello, hello. And of course, the moment I hit the stream button, that's when I remember, oh yeah, my Twitch stream. I completely forgot to set that up. Here, let's get that set up quick. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Just getting the stream up and going. Sorry about last week. I was definitely under the weather, definitely sick, unable to join in. Personal update. I harvested my honey. I still have to filter it and process it properly, so I don't have it, and I don't have the jars, so I'm still getting some equipment, still getting some stuff. But here, I can actually give me 1 second here. This is the honey. You can see that's the line right there. It's about 50 pounds. Yeah, let's see. Can I get it in the... I just need to filter it properly and get it all set up properly, and it'll and then jar it. Yeah. Doing the beekeeping and doing the honey. And I'm gonna make a quick video after I get it all filtered, of course. The real beauty of doing the beekeeping, man, is it's like it really connects you to the land. It really connects you to something really beautiful, you know? And getting connected to the earth. Matthias, good to see you, my man. Getting connected to the earth, you know? Getting out of these grocery stores and having something that actually, like, reminds you that, you know, the earth provides. The earth provides. Like, the earth, we live in a period, this is what makes this period so frustrating and so irritating and so annoying, is that we live in a period of mass abundance. That there's all the food that anybody could want. There's all the resources that anyone could want. The earth is providing so much for us, and we are being gatekept from it. That the system that we live under is a gatekeeping system that ensures that people are not permitted to participate in it on all sides. Like, who are the people who are hired to go work the land? Is it the citizens? Is it the people who live in the society? Is it our children? Right? No, it's temporary foreign workers. It's essentially a slave system where we bring people in from war-torn countries that we drop bombs on. It's that to me is like the dead center of what makes everything so frustrating, is we all could be having such a wonderful, beautiful life, just producing from the land, living on the land, enjoying each other's company, enjoying each other's, and instead of that, we've got this series of tolls. There's these series of toll booths that are just in our way, and it's frustrating, and it's annoying, and it's bothersome. Outside of the beekeeping, my teaching English as a second language course has started. We're about a week, 2 weeks into it now, and it looks like it's going to be very straightforward. That come this time next year, I'll be teaching English as a second language. It's going to give me a lot of financial stability, which I'm quite grateful for. The Toronto District School Board is a well-established organization, and they need people to do this work. Worst case scenario, I'll be doing substitution work and supply work, which is fine by me. There's a lot of flexibility to that. So I'm personally in a very, like, kind of joyful and chill sort of spot, right? That everything seems to be working out in my favor. The universe is conspiring to my benefit. I'm not falling into despair. Even though there are things, and that's what this whole channel is about, there are things to despair about. The thing that I've really been paying a lot of attention to these last... good to see you, Long Defiant. John, good to see you. John writes, glad you found a spot that's amenable to you, not easy out in the jungle. Well, I'm very grateful that I have a good friend who's really helping me out. The story that I've been paying a lot of attention to this week is, of course, Greta Thunberg's flotilla. This is something like the 37th attempt or some ridiculous number to break through the siege in Gaza, to actually move resources into Gaza, to do something about this very obvious, very straightforward genocide that's very clearly happening. And of course, all expectations are that Israel is simply going to do what Israel has always done, which is take over these ships, detain people, deport them, kill some, right? It's very likely that many of the people who are involved in this flotilla will simply be killed. And of course, the pressure is mounting on Israel to resolve this. And the way that Israel is attempting to resolve it is, of course, to just continue the genocide, right? That in Israel's mind, resolution to this means victory. Long Defiant writes, they are already intercepting it. Yeah. So the question is, what are they going to do with Greta? That's really the question, because Greta Thunberg is like the kind of thorn in the side. She seems to be the one who gets the lightning strike. She's the one who gets the media attention, right? It's referred to as Greta Thunberg's flotilla, even though there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved. Like the goat, good to see you. And like this flotilla actually had like European nations participating. Right? Spain sent a warship. Italy did for a period of time. Greece did. So there were European nations that were getting involved in this flotilla in serious military capacity. It hasn't stopped Israel from doing anything, of course. What this flotilla, in my view, really is, and what it's really achieving, is it's drawing a lot of attention, right? It's very difficult to ignore this story at this point. It's in the mainstream. Bloop, good to see you. Hey John, good to see you. I don't recall you, Bloop. Although I kind of do. You're sort of in the back of my mind. Bloop. Well, good to see you in either case. Hope you're here to be beautiful. Long Defiant writes, I could never put here what Twitter is calling for in regards to Greta. Yeah, absolutely. No, the Zionists are really calling for blood. Like, I've seen people say we should lock Greta up for a year. Some people are calling for her death, of course. These Zionists are Nazis, so one shouldn't be too surprised. What this flotilla really is it is a clarion call to the European nations to see if they have credibility. That's really what this is. That this flotilla, there is like no universe in which a credible government system, a credible ruling system, would ever stand in the way of this flotilla. That these vessels going into Gaza should be permitted to do so. And Italy, France, Spain, England, Germany, these countries should be demanding that it happen. These countries should be the ones that are organizing it. The idea that these ships, these flotillas, were created in the first place. Joe, good to see you, my man. The idea that this flotilla was created by volunteers, by just people who were so drawn and so insistent that something must be done, that they've just organized it themselves. Like, this is private initiative. This is grassroots. This is what this is. This isn't a nation funding and organizing this. This is private citizens who across the Western world who have finally said, we can't just watch this happen. We don't have the... and I completely understand that. Like, especially if you had Palestinian friends or you knew people from Palestine. Like, I know people in the United States, and things are starting to happen down there. And I'll talk about some of those things as we go along. But, like, I have a friend who lives in Nebraska, and she just told a story to me about how the Medicaid cuts are impacting her. And how she's watching, like, literally 4-year-olds lose their funding and lose their ability to get resources in the state. And there's that overwhelming sense of helplessness. And every time I see a story regarding DEI services, about how the Trump administration is going after DEI services, I know people who work in DEI services in the United States. And how long until their funding is just cut? How long until there are ICE raids? How long until all of that starts happening? And if I were to find out that those people were under physical threat, like, not just an existential maybe something will happen, but literally, like, this is happening, I would put myself on the line in order to protect those people to the best of my ability. And that's exactly what these people are doing. That's exactly what Greta Thunberg and the flotilla are doing. Christopher De Silva, good to see you, my man. John Hallenberg with a $10 donation. Thank you so much, friend. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. A good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe. If you care to donate, please consider doing so. It makes me feel good about myself. Every little bit counts. Trying to keep the ship afloat. Yeah, in terms of my financial position, like, I'm basically just floating through until the end of my TESL training, and then that's going to be my job. Getting out of the cafe was the best decision ever. Like, it was such a good idea. It was just such an energy drain after those sort of corporate fascists took over. But it does mean that, you know, tighten up the belt a little bit, so to speak. And I think that what people are going to look at, like, when they look at this flotilla, certainly when I look at it, I'm going to look back at this flotilla and I'm going to think to myself, this was really the moment, like the real true checkpoint, flag raised, flag planted, where the European nations lost their credibility, where they truly lost the respect of the nations of the world, where really everyone, like, if you're living in Africa, India, Russia, China, Latin America, if you're living in most of the world, you're looking at this flotilla, scratching your head, going, how come these nations aren't demanding that this happen? Like, how is it that Canada can say on the world stage, there's a genocide happening, we acknowledge it, we acknowledge the genocide that's occurring, but do absolutely nothing to help. And in fact continue trying to find ways to funnel resources into Israel. Like, the West is discrediting itself, and it's taking the public a long time to sort of piece it together. It's taking the public a long time to figure out that they are governed by people who are not operating in the interests of a national strategy at all. Baldy, how you doing? I keep seeing people on social media, and I keep seeing people popping up asking the question, like, are they like trying to destroy the economy? Like, are they just stupid, or are they actually trying to destroy the economy? And the answer is, of course, that it's both. That they are very stupid people, and they are also trying to destroy the economy. Because we tend to view the economy, right, this nebulous sort of quasi-religious idea, we tend to view the economy as a national strategy, as a community-building idea, that we should have an economy, and that economy should include everyone within it, and everyone should have access to it, and it should be of benefit to everyone involved. That's generally how people think about an economy. The ruling class does not think about the economy that way. That the economy is a extraction system at this point. And it's taking the public a long time to come to terms with this, and to realize that what they're looking at is total betrayal. That the same people who are willing to stand and watch a genocide unfold will stand by and watch you and your family collapse into poverty. They won't have a problem with that. And the public seems really incapable. There seems to be some kind of mental constipation happening, where the public is just unable to actually say, oh, hey, these guys are just configuring the society to extract wealth from us, so that once they can no longer extract any more value from us, they can abandon us and take off to whatever Jeffrey Epstein style sex dungeon they have prepared for themselves to live in. And it just seems like no one is really willing to allow themselves to go there. That everyone is still sitting in this place of, well, certainly these people are trying their best. Or these guys are just dumb. And I think it really is time for us as a people to actually start seriously, openly talking about how the people who govern us are actively evil and are actively planning the destruction of the nation for their own personal benefit. We're not there. And I don't know that we ever will get there. That it's too easy for people to get caught up in low frequency thinking and low level thinking, like Democrat versus Republican. That nobody can get into this mode of thought that there is a larger system at play that manipulates smaller systems. And to me, this is the core of the issue. You can't organize a people. You can't organize a people unless their consciousness is raised. Unless they live in a position where they're actually saying, oh yeah, the liberals and the conservatives are allies. They are planning the decline of the society on purpose for their own wealth and prestige. They're not running on a bad idea and the other guys have an alternative idea that's better. All of their ideas are bad and structured within the concept of extracting wealth from you until they can't anymore. And once they can't anymore, they just walk away from the wreckage. Like, Gaza is the floor plan. Like, Gaza is the blueprint. They're looking at Gaza being like, this is how we organize our society properly. This is what wealth extraction looks like. This is what... and then once we get to the point where they're too inconvenient, we literally just burn them to the ground. That's the world that we're living in. Like, Mark Carney doesn't give a fuck about anybody except himself. He has no moral compass whatsoever. He cares about Mark Carney and no one else. And I mean, Donald Trump makes it obvious. Like, Donald Trump cares about Donald Trump and literally no one else. Literally no one else. That everyone is just a stepping stone. Everyone is just a pawn to be moved on a game board of their own imagination. There's no such thing as community building. There's no such thing as empathy. There's no such thing as collaboration. There's no such thing as nation building. Like, it's all gone. It's all completely gone. And it just seems like nobody wants to admit it. Everybody wants to continue believing that, oh, there'll be some kind of turning point or a pivot, or someone will take power and everything will, and it's just not going to go down that way. And when we look at the flotilla, this is one of these striking points. This is one of these moments of like, oh, will the West regain its credibility? Will the West actually say, okay, we've got enough public support now, we've got enough private citizenry who are actually willing to risk a lot, actually willing to risk a lot in order to push resources into Gaza. Okay, we actually do have to say, okay, like, enough is enough. We have to make a stand. And they're not. They're simply not. That for a moment they were like, here's a military ship that's going to come with you for a minute, but we're going to stand by and watch while Israel just drone strikes you. Like, they're not going to do anything about it. And so this is truly, like, if they're not going to do anything about this, they're not going to do anything to help you. Ever. The GOAT writes, Trump signed an executive order yesterday essentially paying scientists to use AI for cancer research after slashing 9 figures worth of cancer research previously. Scam economy propping up a bubble. Yeah, everything's a scam now. Like, everything is just a series of Ponzi schemes, and just like multi-level marketing schemes or pump and dump schemes, right? Like crypto. Crypto's just pump and dump schemes. There's no foundation to any of this. There's no floor on any of it. Meanwhile, you pivot over to China. China has sentenced its former agriculture minister Tang Renjian to death for corruption and accepting $38 million in bribes during his tenure. Now, you can have a conversation about the death penalty if you like, right? But if you're living in most of the world and you see news like this, you go, oh, okay, here's a society that's actually like fighting corruption and is actually looking at corrupt politicians and saying, no. Like, can you imagine any official in any Western country even facing an ethics commission, right? Let alone the death sentence, but just like literally sitting down and actually being like, oh, I face consequences for what I'm saying. Oh, there's consequences for taking bribes. But we live in a country where bribery and corruption are part of the structure of the system now. That's how the government actually works. That's how the system of, if you want to call it governance, functions, if you want to call it functioning. Hull, good to see you. Baldy McNosehair, happy Reconciliation Day, John. Happy Reconciliation Day to you as well. I saw a lot of people wearing orange and Truth and Reconciliation gear here in Toronto, so I'm glad to see that that's something that's being taken more seriously. Joe writes, I've been wondering a lot about this. I'm astonished at how long it's taking us as citizenry to draw a line and stop taking it, though it's difficult to know what to do. Here in the West, it's business as usual. Well, and there are moments, like there are hopeful little moments, like, where is it? I had it, yeah. There are huge protests happening in Italy. Like massive protests. Like all the ports are shut down. The transit systems are shut down. It's being done, and the protesters are explicit about it. It's being done specifically to stop sending any resources to Israel. And it's a reason why, like, their leader is currently like a far-right fascist, but even she is in this position where she's got to be like, okay, we've got to actually respond to this. Like, we're starting to enter a, like, post-World War I moment. In post-World War I Europe, people were just taking control of factories. Like, that's what the communists were doing. That when Lenin was writing about revolution and when Marx was writing about revolution in Europe, they all thought it was going to happen in Germany. Like, they were of the opinion that Germany was the place that was the most likely to see a successful revolution. And it was because people were just going around taking control of shit. And that the power structure didn't really have a way to respond meaningfully. Like, they just didn't have the resources to be able to deal with thousands and thousands of people just taking control of shit and looking at these fraudulent capitalists and telling them to fuck off. And we're starting to move in that direction where there's enough, you might say, grassroots power. There's enough people who are really involving themselves, putting their feet on the ground and really taking over things and blockading things and getting in the way. And this, of course, will lead to a World War II style backlash, right? That the power structure isn't just going to look at that and go, oh, goodness. Oh, well, I guess we have to deal with that. Like, there's a reason why ICE exists. And those organizations will begin to pop up across Europe as well. Hull writes, all signs are leading to a bleak future. I just don't see a bright one. I'm sorry. Well, I think one of the things for me to really point to and to really... one of the reasons I do this show, right, is to be honest about what's happening in the world, but also to say that, you know, if you back if you back away from these events that are going on in the world, and I shouldn't say back away, that's not correct, but just like, if you focus on your own life, and if you focus on yourself, and if you look at what's going on directly around you, and I really mean, like, who are your neighbors, like what's going on in your building, what's going on your block, like, there's a lot of positivity to be had there. And I know for myself, like, being able to embark on this beekeeping, being able to embark on my teaching English as a second language training, right? It gives me a lot of hope for my future. That there are trends that look very negative. There are trends that look very bad. Certainly. And the system of capital is blowing itself apart. And so our goal should be to, with hope, not with despair, with hope, move forward with the understanding that the system of capital is going to blow itself up. And we should prepare ourselves and position ourselves and understand that the system of capital is blowing itself up. And so that when it blows up in more significant ways, we are at least emotionally prepared for it, at least existentially prepared for it. Because we're looking at a situation where millions of people are just not going to have access to the resource system anymore. Like, that's really what's going to happen. Like, it's so embarrassing in a way. Like, we're very embarrassing people. That's the thing about the West that I think is my biggest takeaway, is just how embarrassing we are. Like, we create all of this prosperity. We have all of this food. We have all of these resources. We have access to so much. We just walk into any grocery store. We have access to so much. And the issue is that we have a prevailing religious ideology that essentially boils down to, if you want to have access to these resources, then you need to convince somebody who has access to finance and finance power. We've created a little monopoly game, and that game is how we try to justify who gets access to food and shelter or not. It's this ridiculous, clownish religious ideology that essentially starts with the premise that you're not worthy. You don't have the value or the worth to have access to food and shelter. That we place ourselves above the creative forces of the universe, God, and we say that we are the ones who get to judge who should have access to food and shelter. It's a very dark worldview that basically says, oh, we're going to throw food in the garbage bin and not give it to you because you don't have enough of the fake little paper dollars to give us. Tom Cracks over on Twitch, Free Palestine. Yeah, free Palestine, you bet. Gamer Jam. The only hope for humanity at this point is an extraterrestrial takeover. No, I think that we just need to have like a moment of spiritual awakening. Like, that's really what it is. It's going to be a moment of spiritual awakening where people finally go, like, hold on, why are we not allowing people to have access to food and shelter? Like, what's the actual reasoning? Like, what's the actual rationale for why people don't have food and shelter? And the bottom line on why people believe that other people should not have access to food and shelter is because they don't think that they're worthy according to a system of funny money. Oh, you don't have enough funny money. You're not participating in a system that's actively destroying itself and abandoning you to the degree that we accept. It's a like, and so it's created. There's manic worldviews that are just like insane, like the view that one's retirement should be tied to the value of your home is manic. And it's manic because who can afford to buy a house at these prices? And so the only people who can afford to buy the house at the price that you've set it at is some corporation. So it's literally destroying whatever idea of a housing market in order to create a permanent rentier economy of just corporate landlords, essentially. It's a hysteria-based worldview, and the idea that this is valuable or worthwhile or something that should be tolerated is just like a deeply dark spiritual failing. Austin, good to see you. John writes, lefties here in California are girding themselves for the next January 6th. We figure Hesburgh gathered the military brass to see how much uniform support there would be for a coup. Yeah, that was an interesting speech that Hegseth gave. Like the Hegseth speech as well as the Trump speech. I think their silence spoke volumes. That I think that it's pretty clear that the military does not respect these people, they shouldn't. Like, there's no reason why any military brass anywhere should respect Donald Trump or Pete Hegseth. These guys are clowns. They're incredibly weak. They're deeply, deeply stupid, and exclusively self-interested. To me, that's the big one. Like, exclusively self-interested. And the things that they're doing are, like, foolish is not even close to the right word. Like they're just, they're not capable of rational thinking any longer. Like, everything is just, am I making money, then it's good. Do I get to put my name on a building, then it's good. And meanwhile, the military personnel who these guys are talking to are literally going to be putting their lives on the line. And many of these people have seen these types of clowns before. Like, the Bush administration was a clownish administration, right? Like, and there's a real sense in America now, especially amongst like Iraqi war vets, of a recognition that those wars were profiteering wars, and they weren't for any value. There was nothing valuable that happened there. That if there was a prevailing strategic ethos, it was a strategic ethos based on chaos and destruction, and not actually attempting to build anything of value that lasted for any length of time. And so now Donald Trump shows up with his Secretary of Defense, or his Secretary of War, I guess it is now, and talking about a warrior ethos. The implication, of course, being that, like, it's such a deep insult to a military person that somebody like Pete Hegseth believes that he knows what a warrior ethos is, as opposed to a general who has been in the military his entire life. It's such a deeply insulting thing to say. And if you watch the speech that Hegseth gets, it's like really clear that he was expecting people to applaud, that he would say something and he was expecting a response, and it was just dead silence. So my biggest takeaway from those speeches is that the conversations surrounding, oh, the Republicans will just stay in office, right? Trump will run for a third term, like all that kind of stuff. Like, I do think that there is a limit, and that the United States military will say, no. Like if Donald Trump says we're not going to have an election, the military will remove him. That's really the truth. The military will just remove him. Because there is a prevailing belief throughout the military in the power of the American democracy. The idea that there's going to be a military overthrow and the installation of some kind of military dictatorship is not necessary, first of all, because of the way the system has been structured. But I also think that, like, everyone hates these guys. Like, truly the organization who should be really raked over the coals and who we should really be looking at and really despising throughout all of this is the Democrats. Not being able to actually form an opposition to this. Joe writes, it's terribly outdated. Hard to believe it's the so-called pro-life people who adhere to this nonsense. Yeah, because it's a religious ideology, right? Like, there's no consistency. It's not even a philosophy. Like, it literally is like, oh, the person with the money said that, then it is good. And it doesn't matter if it contradicts itself. It doesn't matter if it's loaded with absurdity and nonsense. Because rich guy said that. Rich people are good. Like, it really is like that. And we're not going to I don't think we're going to see a change on that. You know, that the Democrats are very likely to fail to present a reasonable opposition. Like, it's pretty likely that come the midterm election, there's going to be a flipping of some kind of, like, the Congress or the Senate or something will flip, and it won't be this, like, super majority kind of situation. But I don't think that'll change too much, honestly. Like, the Democrats are bought into the system too. They're just sleeker about it. They have better PR teams. Austin says, how's it going, comrade? Going very well. John writes, you are well focused today, John. I think it's because I've been meditating a lot more. I've been really making sure that I get at least 15 minutes. I'm trying to get that a little longer, trying to get it up into about a half hour, which is tough. And I've been journaling a lot. I personally, I've been going through like a spiritual, like, I've been going through like kind of a spiritual renaissance myself. And I feel like there's been like a real connection to something larger than myself that's been going on for me personally. And it's been quite a journey. And I feel like I am personally going through dramatic changes. Like, these last 2 months have just been very dramatic for me. And there's been just like a lot of dramatic is the word, just dramatic upheaval. And it's starting to settle in. And I've got my spiritual practices. And I think one of the things I've noticed it for myself is just this centering of self and this insistence. Like, leaving the cafe, I look back on why did I leave that cafe? And I left the cafe because they were really telling me that I could no longer be myself. And I could no longer participate in... They were doing that Starbucks thing where they wanted you to be Starbucks. And I just was like, no, I'm not interested in that. Like, I'm going to participate in these pursuits, and I'm going to do what I think is correct. and I'm not going to be cajoled into something because somebody who doesn't do the job and who is in fact quite bad at the job has a stupid worldview. And especially when that worldview looks pretty close to fascism. Hull writes, exactly what happens in the movie Civil War 2024. The military takes out the president in the end. Compton, good to see you. I mean, that's sort of the big question, is to what degree is the military going to be involved in this? Like, I mean, we do have these sorts of moments are beginning to happen in America. Des Moines Public School Superintendent Ian Roberts arrested by ICE. Like, this to me is where the terror really lies. This to me is where things are very scary. That, like, is it possible that the people I know in America, the people I care about who live in America, my friends and family who live in America, is it possible that just ICE agents will come and grab them and they'll just be detained? Like, if you have a worldview that is, if your politics, if you're a communist living in America, are ICE agents going to come and grab you? So it's a very scary time. And it genuinely does seem as though the consciousness of the public is not raising to the seriousness of the threat. That it's extremely telling that this Charlie Kirk assassination is persisting in the public consciousness, and that there's still these people who are clutching their pearls about it. While Charlie Kirk and his ilk are at least Nazi adjacent. Like, it's pretty wild how bleak things have gotten throughout the United States, that we're supposed to uphold the virtues of one of the darkest figures in America at the moment, while ignoring the negative consequences of what that figure does. And for goodness sakes, like, these people, they're shutting down the government over trans issues. Like, this is the thing. This is how you know that we're not dealing with reasonable people. That we're not dealing with something that's rational. That look at the extent that they're willing to go, or look to the degree that they're willing to allow this group to be scapegoated in order to get their goals accomplished. Like, there's like 0.6% of the populace is trans. It's a very, very small group of people. Right? And they're shutting the government down over it. Like, this is not rational. This is entering a realm of deep emotional trauma and fear, where people are so terrified of the idea of a trans person that they're just willing to sacrifice literally everything in order, if it means that they get to hurt this small, vanishingly tiny group of people. Like, this is how pathetic we are. I've said it before, and I'll continue saying it. I come from a conservative background. I was surrounded by conservative people my whole life. I grew up around them. And I can understand why these men, specifically the men, of course, but not limited, I can understand these people looking at one another and grumbling in their cups at a bar, or telling each other lewd jokes in a bar, and just being a bunch of yokels and being a bunch of dumbasses, basically, about it, and saying a bunch of dumb hick stuff about it. That I can see and have, while I doubt I would participate, I can understand why these types of gentlemen would pursue this. But the idea that they're then going to leave the bar, they're going to sober up, they're going to go into their churches, they're going to go into their workplaces, and then they're going to create a political movement. Around that idea. That's just ridiculous. That's just clownish. Like, even if they believed that they were correct, it's just, you really think the most important thing affecting your life is whether or not there's a trans person that exists? I think it's time for you to grow up. Gamer Jams over on Twitch writes, reminder that our healthcare system in America is held hostage by criminal mafia middlemen who bribe politicians to guarantee we'll never have a basic human right. I don't understand why the millions of denied insurance claims each year don't lead to mass rioting. Yeah, I mean, there are protests happening across America. They're not well publicized or televised for obvious reasons. The power structure doesn't want you to know that they're happening. Because they don't want them to spread and they don't want participation to happen. You'll recall that the Occupy Wall Street movement was on for a couple of weeks before there was any mass publicity about it, and it happened because the real spark of the Occupy movement was because the police literally were walking up to just pedestrians, like standing on the street with like a latte, being like, and they would just like pepper spray people, right? And that kicked up a lot of like The View and like these sorts of organizations who are like, hey, whoa, what the hell is happening here? And that really made the Occupy Wall Street movement spread. And I think that if the media structure were to actually start to talk about the protests that were actually happening in the nation, that would make them spread. And they would prefer to talk about Donald Trump, right? They would prefer to spread fascism instead of letting people get to a point where they would realize what needs to be done at this stage in the game. The Goat writes, John, as someone who lived through the 90s, how bad was the moral panic around gay and lesbian people back then compared to the trans panic today? I would say that it is similar. The trouble with what's happening today is that the solution is way more elusive. It's way more elusive. So, for the gay rights movement, I think, really found success and really diffused. There's a lot of diffusing of anxiety and fear and anger regarding sort of the anti-gay crowd, simply by showing gay people. Like a television show like Will and Grace, for example, right? And then and interacting with gay people and having gay people come out in your community and actually meeting a gay person and actually kind of and the true death knell of the anti-gay movement, like the thing that really took the wind out of the sails and really made it difficult for them to move forward, is that straight white men started to ask themselves if they were gay, right? That they just, because that's ultimately what it all comes down to, right? And anybody who's living in this place of total panic and total hysteria and has this sort of manic, like someone like Matt Walsh is manic, right? Like making these movies and like doing all this stuff, it's mania. Like, what are you talking about? You're living from a place of total fear. You're in a place of just absolute hysteria if you're living that way. And the gay rights, the anti-gay movement really diffused, I think, once a lot of people just started to ask themselves, well, am I gay? And actually seriously, right? Because that's where the fear is that you'll ask yourself, am I gay? And then you'll come up with a yes. And then you've got to live with that in a society that ostracizes gay people. And that's tough. And so there's a lot of fear. And people are not very aware, and they don't live in a state of consciousness for the most part. Like, people are very reactive, and they basically just are taking what's given to them in life and reacting to it. That's how most people operate. That there isn't really like an active operating system going on where people actually take an active critical eye. And lots of people just take things at surface value. And so the gay rights movement was able to kind of crack through that ever so slightly. And a bunch of people said, well, am I gay? And the answer was no. Or maybe it was yes. And then they said, okay, yes, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. And people started coming out, and it started to become just more understood that, oh, this is something that exists, and it's fine. And it is, it's totally fine. The trans rights movement is more difficult, far more difficult, because the existence of a trans person is fundamentally an attack on a straight white male's identity. That the concept, like when a fascist like Matt Walsh asks, what is a woman? Because he's an innate coward, and he has no moral center or worldview that has any value, he's too cowardly to actually ask the real question that he actually cares about, which is, what is a man? Right? Like, someone like Matt Walsh is just using women the way that Matt Walsh uses women, which is as a tool, and as a way to express his own innate fears to a group that he considers subordinate to him. But really, if he had any bravery at all, if he had the capacity for self-reflection, if he was a serious person, the question he would ask is, well, what is a man? What does it mean to be a man? What is masculinity? And a big part of what has clouded all of this is the willful ignorance and the willful stupidity of these people to refuse to acknowledge the separation between sex and gender, right? So because there's like one extra step, right? Because there's like one extra layer, which is to say there's like the physical component, right? Sex, the hardware, the gear, right? And then there's the gender side of it, which is the societal constructs. Concepts like masculinity, concepts like femininity, right? What are these? They are worthy of analysis. But it's this inability to separate the two intentionally at this point. Like, they're doing it on purpose at this point, because like it's pretty clear what it is, And this inability to separate between these two things on purpose has you in constantly having to circle back around and re-clarify, constantly having to like you'll be talking about the societal side of things, and then suddenly they're talking about, but they have a penis. It's like, okay. So if you want to talk about the sex side of things, well, there are people who have a combination of those things. Like a hermaphrodite exists. It's a thing that's a type of person that exists in the world. And to me, I think the thing that's going to make it much more difficult for these cowards is that they're not willing to ask, well, what is a man? Does it even matter? So much of their identity, right? Like, especially if you're a fascist, right? So much of your identity is wrapped up in the idea that you are a man. And that's important because there's a group of subhumans who are secondary citizens in your view called women, right? And so it's very important that you are a man and that you are masculine and that you have these attributes that we as fascists agree are man. And that's important that you embody these attributes because you don't want to embody the attributes of the subordinate gender, right? You don't want to be a woman, right? You don't want to be effeminate. You don't want to be caring and giving and loving. Because if you are those things, then you are a subclass of citizen in the view of people like Matt Walsh and these fascists. And so the existence of a trans person is a direct assault on this particular worldview that says there are two genders and one's better, and that there isn't equality between the two of them, and that nothing could be more scary to someone who holds this worldview than the idea that, oh, there might be a man who wants to become a woman, right? Like, notice whenever they talk about this, they don't care about women who become men, right? They don't care if a woman transitions to a man. That's not relevant to them. They don't talk about that. It is always a man transitioning to be a woman. Always, 100% of the time. And so, it's so very clear that it's all wrapped up in the concept of the patriarchy, and it's all wrapped up in this concept of masculinity and femininity, and that the worst thing for someone who identifies as a man to be is a woman. And so I think it's going to be a longer road, and it's going to be much more difficult, and there's going to be larger backlashes. Especially because the trans community is such a small group and not organized at all, right? And so, and what it really means is that suddenly all the trans people will disappear. And it'll just be very simply because they'll stop presenting. They'll just, you know, if a trans person looks in the mirror and says, okay, well, I do present as a man, they'll just present as a man in public and just make their life easier. I know trans people who do exactly that, who for a period of time, like they're more masculine presenting, but they identify as a woman, and then eventually they were just like, I'm just gonna walk around looking like a dude. It's just easier. But then you get to know them, and you're immediately like, yeah. You've got a feminine spirit inside of you for sure. So the road is longer. It's going to be more difficult because with the gay panic in the 90s, it really came down to a bunch of fascists going, well, am I gay? No. Well, okay. What are we even worried about? and the fear de-escalated. The fear sort of vanished from it, or at least diminished. But now it's like a bunch of straight white men being like, well, am I a woman? And I think what we're really seeing is that for fascists, being gay is a less scary idea than being a woman. Right? That the core of it is misogyny. That these guys don't really view women as people. That they can come to terms with being gay because then at least they're still a man. But they could never come to terms with the idea that they're actually a woman. Hull writes, in the Roman and Greek civilization, they very well worship being a man lover was pretty much the norm. I mean, I don't know if we want to uphold the Roman and the Greek civilization, but it just... the whole thing is funny to me. And it's funny to me because... first of all, it's such a small issue. It really only affects like less than 1% of the public. It's not this big, massive, crazy national... Like, we shouldn't be voting for the president of the United States based on this issue. No matter what you think about it. Right? Even if you're one of these guys that's just like, oh, they're giving drugs to children and giving surgeries and all. Oh my God, it's terrible. You still shouldn't be voting for the president based on this issue. Like, it's not that important. It really isn't. And and really, I just think what it reveals is the inherent misogyny that exists in the society, because that's pretty much core to the whole conversation. And that if we lived in a society where women were actually respected, people actually cared about women and what they had to say, and they actually were treated as equals, then I don't think this trans issue would have any truck. I don't think anybody... Like, people would look at it as a curiosity. Right? Like, you'd have, like, your Chappelle stand-up special, and he might do a couple things, and people might go, oh, haha, that's interesting, and then they just move on. Right? It's that it's hooked inside of people. It's like people have made their identity being anti-trans, and, like, telling trans jokes, and, like, all of this stuff, and it's just weird. It's just kooky and weird. Like, I can understand, like, a comedian telling a trans joke, right? Like, that's... It's in the realm of existence, so tell that joke, go ahead. But to have it be part of, like, who you are as an identifier, and that you have, like, a section of your special is dedicated to this, it's weird, and it's gotten weird. And I feel like it really just does come down to what these straight men are really grappling with is not the existence of a trans person. It's that they hate women. Right? And so what's the solution? Love women. Good luck. Good luck. The battle of the sexes is raging right now. Like, it's raging. I've noticed it in the dating when I go out and try to date. It's very, very difficult. Like, it's way more difficult than it used to be. And if you take a look at the stats on it, like, men and women are not dating. Like, it's very, very difficult out there right now. And I think a lot of it does come down to there's a lot of, like, the internet sort of blew everything up. Like, things that would be talked about behind closed doors are now being said in public. Pornography exists. like, and people can see it. And so I think this is kind of cracked everything open, and we're really seeing one another. And I don't think anybody likes what they're seeing right now, unless you approach people with love. That if you approach people with the spirit of love and compassion and empathy, right, then when they reveal these sort of darker or more base aspects of themselves, you go, yeah. And you can actually kind of enjoy that about them. But even the revealing of that carries with it quite a lot of fear, and so it's very difficult for people to do. We don't have a handle on our emotions. We don't have a handle on ourselves. And that's really manifesting on all aspects of our lives. Gamer jammed, right? Or, end capitalist exploitation. Yeah, I mean, that'd be nice. I feel like if we ended the exploitation of capitalism, that would give us a lot more time to be able to sort of like... Because I make the argument that it is it's that capitalism is keeping us on this treadmill of busyness, so we can't do any self-analysis and we can't actually have serious conversations about what's happening in our society. But really the core issue is that we're not emotionally stable, and we're not having emotional conversations with one another. And I've seen that happen to people. I've seen people who heck, a couple of months ago, I was talking back and forth with a beautiful they-them, and that came to an end. And it didn't come to an end because they didn't like me. It came to an end because they weren't able to... they didn't have time anymore. That the system of capital just sort of swept them away. And that's just the reality of what it is to live in this society. That the system of capital is just going to sweep people away. And you're going to miss out on beautiful conversations and beautiful relationships and beautiful experiences with people because the system of capital is just going to sweep them up. It's a very sort of sad time to be alive, and it's sad because we could, things could be so much better for us. Like, this could be a garden. We could be living in a real oasis. This could be a real safe haven of a place where people spawn in and it's just beautiful. It could be like that. The Goat writes, not every homophobic person I know is secretly gay, but they're at least very insecure in their masculinity. Yeah. I mean, I just think it boils down to sort of a disdain for women, right? That men want women in their lives, and we're seeing that in the manosphere, where men who go through breakups, or men who get cheated on or left by women, right, really take a all women approach to it, right? They're really like, all women are like this, and there's a bigotry there because men want women. Like, it's hardwired inside of us. Every man wants a woman. That's just in our DNA. And so I think for a lot of guys it's just easier that instead of actually coping with grief, instead of actually coping with letting people go and emotions and all of this kind of stuff, instead of actually saying, okay, that happened, what did I learn from it? How can I grow from that? What did I learn about myself? Was I blinding myself to something? Is there a trauma there that I'm not exploring? What is it that led to this, and is there something that I can take away from it that is positive, so that the next relationship I get in, I can do better, right? Instead of that, it's just bitches are crazy. Who needs these bitches? And that's essentially the core of the manosphere, right? Just the inability to evolve, the inability to grow or learn, the inability to even like build up your own intuition, right? Your own kind of abilities, or to listen to your gut. Like, every relationship that falls apart, every time there is an end of the relationship, there are signs. Like, you know that it's coming. You can see that it's kind of going in that direction. And through the power of hindsight, you can look back on those relationships and you can see, like, oh yeah, like, I see how they were trying to get away from me here, or I see that we were no longer connected here, right? I see that. But if you're unwilling to go back and actually look at it, if you're unwilling to actually do that work, then you're never gonna then you're just gonna stay the same person. You're just gonna get older. And yeah, I think that's just the truth. And so people project, right, that, oh, it's not that I need to change, or it's not that I need to look into something, or it's not that I need to take stock of who I am, take a look at my fears. It's that gay people are weird, right? But really, like, what's so funny about being a homophobe, right, as a straight man, is that what you're scared of is somebody treating you like a woman, right? You're worried about another man approaching you and beginning to address you and to treat you as though you are a sexual conquest, or somebody to be pursued sexually. To not use negative language on it, to just that you are a person just living in the world, and then someone approaches you and is like, hey, are you interested in a sexual path? And that feeling for a straight man is an inversion of what is typical, and that straight men are used to being the ones to be the chasers, or to put it on, or to present that energy. And so to be treated, have that inversion, means that in their mind they're being treated like a woman. And if you don't like women, or you don't think women are people, or you think they're a subclass of a person, which lots of people think that way, that's the nature of the patriarchy, then you would be very insecure around gay people. I've said it so many times, and I'll continue saying it. My life, my romantic life, let me be very specific, because I'm sure there would be other aspects that would change towards the negative, but my romantic life would be so much easier if I were gay, you guys. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've been, like, in a coffee shop, or in a just in a clothing store, because when I'm about in the world, I dress very nice, right? I've got nice clothing, right? I've got lovely sweaters. I look good. I'm not like baseball cap, flannel jacket kind of guy. I like to look good in the world. And there's just been so many times where I'll be just like standing there waiting in line or waiting for an order, and then this like little guy will come up to me and be like, oh, I love your sweater. I love that. Oh, that's so good, right? I'll have like a very nice conversation with this person who's obviously trying to see if they can connect with me. And just like, it's so many times I've just been like, I don't know, this guy seemed nice. I'm just not there. I'm just not down for it. Anyway, that's a bit of a divergent. John, you wrote this quite a while ago. The 90s panic stemmed from the AIDS epidemic. Yeah, that definitely kicked some of that up for sure. I lived in New York City, Greenwich Village at the time, saw the local population halved in a few years. Yeah, a very serious period of time. Well, and also made much more serious because the Clinton administration didn't do anything about it, and the Reagan administration too. It was very obviously like there was a bigotry to it for sure. And then John continues, I think most straight males would agree that masculinity equals having enough agency to change things and to protect the ones they care about. Right, but I mean, even in that definition, right? Why is that? So does that mean that women don't have enough agency to change things and women don't protect the ones they care about? Like, my core I don't really like to talk about masculinity and femininity because I think that they are very nebulous. There's a lot of nebulousness to the conversation. And I really try to focus on the linchpin. Like, what's the core of it? What's the center of it? And near as I can tell, the center of the concept of masculinity is action, and the center of femininity is nesting. That seems to be the core innate attribute that when people are talking about masculinity, they're talking about action. And when they're talking about femininity, they're talking about nesting, creating an environment. Right? That women create the environment and then men act within it. Or that men can create walls, but women decorate them. Right? That sort of concept. These sorts of ideas. And that makes a type of sense given what the physical sexes actually are. Like, if you have a male sex organ system, right, you've got the penis, your interaction with your sexual self is action oriented, right? You have something to give. You've got something to dispense of. You've got something to rid yourself of. Your body produces something with the expectation that it is going to leave your body, right? And that is the goal within being a male, that you are in that kind of state. And we don't really help men deal with that reality. We don't really help them sincerely grapple with the reality of what it is to be have a penis and need to ejaculate. Whereas women, it's the opposite, right? Like, if you have like the ovaries and the vagina and that whole thing, then everything is, you're not giving, you're receiving, right? You're not in the state of action. You're in the state of nesting and then receiving. And so, to me, that is when we talk about the concepts of masculinity versus femininity. Like, that seems to me to be the only attribute that I'm willing to actually attribute to the concept of masculine or feminine. Because that's the only one that's actually rooted in the physical reality of what it is to be to have this equipment and to be a man or to be a woman. That the concept of like protecting those you love, it's like, yeah, women will protect the ones they love. Like they'll for sure do that. Or having agency to change things. I mean, I feel like that's what women have been fighting for a long, long time. And that and like the real truth of the concept of masculinity and femininity is that a person has both, right? Like you have a feminine side to yourself. You have a masculine side to yourself. I know women who are very masculine. They have a very masculine energy about them, right? And I know men who have a very feminine energy about them. And that people have both of these things. And that I think that it isn't healthy for a person to I don't think it's healthy for a person to deny the side of themselves that they don't associate with because of their physical attributes. Like, I am a straight white man, cis male, right? But for me to deny my femininity, for me to deny the feminine aspect of myself, I think would be deeply, deeply unhealthy and not helpful. And in many ways, I feel I have always felt a more feminine side of myself than a masculine side. Like, I'm not really like go out and conquer, you know. It's not the type of person I am. I'm more in a state of receiving and in a state of like I do bad at chasing. I'm not a good chaser because I have a romantic soul. I get very Gomez Adams about things. And I think that most people, I think everybody has a feminine and a masculine side to themselves, and that a big part of being alive in the world is to find a balance between those two things, and to find the balance within yourself, to be both giving and receiving, and to be open to your softer side, but be prepared to harden yourself. And I take a look at people like Matt Walsh, right? Like, if you hate women, right, or you think women are a subclass, and you think that femininity is something to be avoided, right, as a man, then what that means is that there's a part of yourself that you hate. Because everybody is masculine and feminine. You have a feminine side. You have a masculine side. For sure. 100%. And if you've decided that you don't, or you're not going to acknowledge that, then that means that you're at war with yourself, and that you're fighting against yourself. Like, and what a horrible place to be in. Like, what a terrible life to live, to be at war with oneself, and to be afraid of your femininity, to be afraid of being vulnerable and expressing softness, or being artistic. Like, it's this constant demand that we exist as one aspect of ourselves, and that is the only way that we are allowed to express ourselves and to be in the world. It's very sad and narrow and not well rooted in physical reality. Like, you're robbing yourself. You're robbing yourself of living a fuller version of yourself, living a more complete version of who you are, because you are putting an expectation upon yourself that doesn't need to exist at all. You don't need to exist in this state of, I am a man, therefore masculinity, that means these things, and I need to exist in this kind of way. Well, you're just cutting half of your existence off and just saying that the other part of yourself that you are attracted to, you're living in denial and you see it negatively. You say that's bad and I shouldn't be that way. I think it's very sad. Grand Designs Enjoyer over on Twitch says, hi, have you ever had doubts about your political beliefs over the years? So Grand Designs Enjoyer, I used to be a far-right fundamentalist Christian. And I used to be a conservative Christian. And so it's been quite a path to get here. And then Grand Design says, I mean about after you reach to the latest belief system. Well, that's tricky because I no longer really see what I'm doing as like a belief system. I mean, if I were to impose a belief system on it, I would say, like, what's the core? What's the core of what I believe? Everyone should have food and shelter and education and healthcare. That would be the core of it. That you are alive. And the simple fact of your existence is all the evidence anyone should require to answer the question, should that person have food, shelter, water, education, healthcare? That the answer is yes, simply because you exist, and for no other reason. No further justification required. You exist. Therefore, you get these things. And have I had a doubt about that? No. Because to have a doubt about that idea means to have a doubt about the nature of reality itself. That you exist. And you were created by forces that are wildly out of your control. Like, not just like a little out of your control. Like, wildly out of your control. The moment of your birth is the most out of control you've ever been about anything. And you didn't consent to being here. Unless you really want to get into the concept of like spirit contracts and like the soul beyond the soul and all of this sort of spiritual talk that we can talk about if you like. But as far as we're concerned, as far as you're concerned, as far as I'm concerned, like, we're just here. And we're kind of figuring out why. And the fact of your existence means that there are universal forces that have decided to put you here. And the concept that we should withhold food and shelter from anyone who finds themselves in such a predicament has got to be one of the most bleakly evil things that anybody has ever thought. Everybody should have access to food, shelter, clothing, water, education. Like, and it shouldn't even be a question. It shouldn't even be a question. It's extremely strange that we live in a world that actually is having a discussion about whether or not some people should have access to these things or not. Like that's how you know we have a long way to go. And that's how you know our systems are going to fail. Because we're actually saying to each other, some people shouldn't have it. But they have to prove it. As if the reality of their existence isn't proof enough. As if a universe that has spawned them in and created them isn't proof enough. Like, why do we need a further permission than that? It seems excessively odd to me. And I don't have any doubt about it. Sven, good to see you. Over on Twitch. Yeah, this conversation we're having is really tying into, like, as I've been saying throughout these last few months, I've been having a real rekindling of my own spiritual side and my own spiritual practices. And a big part of that is the understanding that the universe that we live in is trying to support us. And I shouldn't say trying to support us. It does support us. And that it'll support you even if you insist in your own failure. That if your goal is, I want to accumulate all of this money and I don't care who I hurt while I do it, then the universe will be like, okay, cool, let's see what that looks like. And if your goal is to foster community and to have friendship and to live in that environment, then the universe will be like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, if you think that you are worthless, if you think that you are without value, then the universe will agree with you. But if you insist upon your own value, and you insist upon your own self-worth, and you insist upon the that what you believe to be true, what you believe to be important, then the universe will say, okay, cool, let's ride or die with that. Good to see you too, Sven. And that really we have a lot to be grateful for as humans. There's a lot to be grateful for. Like, the life that I am living, although it is full of injustice, and those injustices are obvious, and I point them out, we can see the injustices, there are also many positives, right? And that spending time in gratitude, I think, is so important. That spending time in peaceful meditation and spending time in gratitude to remind yourself, oh yes, I have friends who love me and who are supporting me, and I have family that loves me and is supporting me. I've got employment opportunity. The society I live in, I mean, running water. Running water. Grand Designs Enjoyer asks, how much should we care about people that actively support movements that prevent a normal life for certain groups, just based on their intrinsic characteristics? So how much should we care about people that are racists, basically, like, or bigots? That's a tricky question, right? That's a tricky question, because you have to be aware that they're dangerous, right? Because they are dangerous. But you also have to have a kind of empathy or sympathy for them, because, like, this is a tough thing to articulate, but No one is in a bigger crisis than a racist. No one is in a bigger crisis. You want to talk about somebody who is in a true crisis, an identity crisis, a crisis of self, a spiritual crisis. Somebody who is really in a position where they are at their weakest and they are living in fear. Nobody is more afraid than a racist. And while we have to acknowledge that they can do damage, and they do damage, we also need to live in a place where we say, how sad for them. Like, imagine limiting your relationships and your identity and who you are. Imagine reducing yourself to, I'm white. Like, imagine holding that as an identifier that has meaning, and that there are non-white people and then there are white people, and this is how we are going to define ourselves. It's so narrow. It's so limited. It's not even skin deep. It's on the surface. There's a hollowness to it. Like a person who genuinely is excluding people from the reality around them based on skin color is living a very hollow existence, and is not opening themselves up to the absolute treasure of knowing the world through an alternative perspective. Because quite often, if you are robbing yourself of treating that person with a sense of equality, or treating that person with a sense of compassion, chances are very good that you are also robbing yourself of the things that their culture brings in. And it's a sad and sorrowful existence. And moreover, I think it's difficult. I think it's hard to live that way. I think it requires so much more energy to be a racist, or to exist with that kind of worldview. Like, hatred is harder than love. It really is. And my hope is that we'll finally get to a place as a people where we'll actually say, like, hey, man, like, we got to let this all go. It's just going to be easier for us just to let it all go. And in the United States, there's all kinds of stupid things that happen because of these racial divides. Like, a big reason why the healthcare system doesn't get reformed is because there's huge sections of the American public that understand that if it did, then it would benefit black people. And so there's this, like, dramatic divide that exists, based on the silliest of reasons. Your skin color. Like, oof. It doesn't get sillier. It just doesn't get sillier. And it reminds me of that phrase, right? Like, walk softly but carry a big stick. And that's kind of how these people are, right? That you can have sympathy and empathy for them, but they'll lynch people. We had a slew of lynchings happen in Mississippi not that long ago, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Not very well reported, but they happened. And like, lynchings can return. Like, they can become a common thing again. Especially as the United States begins its steady decline into this civil war that it's having with itself. I saw a chart. It was one of those mass shootings through time. So every year they showed you like how many mass shootings happened in various countries, and the Americans are just. And there just comes a point where, like, if you're having like thousands and thousands and thousands of mass shootings every single year, that's a war. That's a civil war. Like, it's and it seems to be accelerating. It seems to be speeding up. And I can't help myself but to think of the people who are in America who I care about. And to think, I hope that they're safe. I hope that they're making good decisions for themselves. I hope that they are aware of the situation they find themselves in. And that I know many of them are going to plant their feet and fight the good fight where they're at. And that they will view fleeing America as failure and giving up. And maybe it is time to give up. That America was always a bad idea. It was always destined to decline. It was always destined to fail. There hasn't been a moment in human history where an empire like America has sustained through time. It's not how it goes. And I worry that people are clinging hold of this idea of America. And that as they cling harder and harder, they'll get more desperate and do more foolish things in order to keep this idea alive. When it's already dead. You can't go to war with the entire rest of the world. You can't commit a genocide. You can't go to war with your own citizens and expect to keep the project going. That should a nation like America actually persist through time successfully, it will not be through the force of violence. It's never worked. It will never work. It's too difficult to make work. It can't work. That if a nation the size of America were to actually persist through time, it would do so because it acknowledged everybody deserves food and shelter, education, healthcare, water. Everybody should live a good and decent life. Content writes, yeah, as someone in America, I think there is a stark divide that is so irreconcilable that you broadly have two peoples that can't escape from each other. A prison of nations. Yeah, I mean, the Trump period really exposed is too big a word because it's always been there, but it did expose this idea that, like, I think Americans had the idea that they were progressing. They had it in their minds that things were getting better, that the divide that existed in America was getting smaller and healing. And I think the Trump administration really showed everybody, no. That there was enough energy for a period of time to push back. But now America is going to return to its roots. And the roots of America are drenched in slavery. And the repression of women, repression of minority groups. That's America, baby. And you can't really build a successful society that way. Content writes, like, honestly, real talk, I don't care if someone wants theocracy and their church, but there is people like me that want pluralism and secularism, and these things are like oil and water. Yep. John Mearsheimer talks about this, where he talks about first principles, right? That a nation or a community, if it's going to be successful, really needs to root itself in first principles. And what are your first principles? And if your first principle is exclusionary, if your first principle is white people only, right? If that's your first principle, like, that's why exclusionary principles are always going to be disastrous, right? Like, you can't have an exclusionary first principle to operate from, because just having the exclusion means that you're alienating huge sections of your society and pretending as though you can actually control it, like pretending as though there aren't going to be immigrants, or pretending like there aren't people who are moving in and out. Grand Designs Enjoiner. I interacted online with a person that mocked people who get lost in mountains while trying to escape from fighting in the Ukrainian army, who said she despised them for risking death while running abroad alone instead of accepting to go fight for her state. How much should I care about people who think like that? We know people who are hunted and forced by use of violence to fight in Ukraine army and to be ruled by tyrannical officer corps. Yeah, I don't know how close I would get to a person who thinks this way. Like, not wanting to fight in the military and being forcibly drafted. It's terrifying. It's a terrifying idea that you're being forced to go fight for something you don't believe in. And it is like an intrinsically fascist worldview. Like, fascism as its core is sacrifice everything for the power of the state, and the state being controlled by business interests. Like, and so to say, yeah, the person's fleeing and they're not giving everything over to the state, I mean, it's very... If they think that way of them, then what do they think of you? You know? And I just feel like I would be very arm's length with someone like that. And it's... Because it really is like, just sacrifice everything for the power of the state. Like, you have no personal autonomy. Certainly don't criticize the state. It also kind of shows a blind allegiance to the Ukrainian state specifically. And the Ukrainian state, like, as time is going forward, it's just getting more and more obvious, is pretty nakedly fascist, with pretty well entrenched Nazi elements. So I've said it over and over again that by the time the Ukrainian war comes to an end, should there be an end, there's going to be Nazi salutes in the Ukrainian parliament. It's just going to be the way. Like, once Zelensky goes, and he will eventually, like Zelensky goes, well, there's a whole group of people behind Zelensky. And Zelensky for a long time has been sort of a convenient cover for the fascist elements in Ukraine. But they'll just rule openly. Like, it's coming. And that to me is going to be the most difficult phase to watch. Is when it all becomes open. Like right now there's a crassness and a boorishness and everything's sinister, right? Everything is selfish and sinister and self-interested, and the people that are running the place are criminals and thieves and liars. But there's still this kind of concept or unwillingness, I suppose, to just be open about it. To just live in this state of just open diabolical evil, right? Like that we get Elon Musk doing a Nazi salute twice, but we don't have the Congress doing a Nazi salute, right? Like we don't have the whole enterprise locked in. And it's coming. It's coming. It'll sweep across the Western world, and it'll happen faster than you think. Where all of the sudden, there's a really interesting play that I was just talking about the other day by a French author by the name of Ionesco, and it's called The Rhinoceros. And it was an absurdist play that Ionesco wrote, that if you didn't do any analysis on it whatsoever, it would just be like an odd play. Because what the play is about is this fellow going through his life, and then all of his friends and family around him steadily start turning into rhinoceros. And that's the whole play, is everybody around him just steadily becoming rhinoceros. Well, it's an analogy for fascism and what it was like living in France as his society became more and more fascist. And that what he witnessed was people he thought were good people, right? Hardworking, loyal, determined, good patriotic citizens of his country who suddenly revealed themselves to just have these very dark fascist worldviews and to be willing to go along with this open fascism that exists in the country. And we're going to see that happen. Like, it's certainly happening in Germany. It's certainly happening in the UK. And it's only going to be a matter of time until we get like a proper dyed-in-the-wool, we are Nazis, white power. Like, until that kind of group of people seize power in one of the European countries. And it's coming. And it's going to be difficult to watch. It's going to be difficult to watch. But that's what we do. We come here and we try to find solace with one another. Try to find grounding. Try to take the negative energy that exists in our lives and put it in a place so that we can get on with the rest of our lives. Isaac, good to see you, my man. The majority of the leaders are already Nazis. I mean, the signs are there. Like here in Canada, we applaud Nazis. we're pretty openly in support of Israel, and we're pretty openly in support of Ukraine. Like, we're not on the right side of things. We're definitely, and there's a lot of public support for it as well. So it's a difficult time. Which is why I always say, get to know your neighbors, spread love around you. You attract what you are, right? Have love in your heart. When you meet people who are caught up in the propaganda and who are caught up in the ideology, right? Approach them with delicacy, softly. I have a different perspective. And start very simply with, yeah, I just think that food and shelter and clothing and education and healthcare should be freely available to everybody. And there shouldn't be an exception to that. It's a difficult position to argue against, I've come to find. Isaac writes, the market is doing well, so everything is good according to the elite. Yeah. I mean, according to these guys, as long as they're making money, then everything's fine, right? The strategy of extraction and followed by abandonment is working, right? The abandonment will be hard to watch. That'll be a difficult time. Well, I think we've come to the end of this one, guys. I think a 2-hour stream today is just fine. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.